Welcome to the Life You're Made For with me, Dr. Heather Penny. We're going to be having conversations that talk about us spiraling up versus spiraling down, because we all want to be living lives that are about thriving, not just surviving. This is the life you're made for. So let's get going. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to have a very dear old friend of mine, but not only that, an amazing leader in the field and someone who's also mentored me in my earlier years in the field. This is Don DeLair. Hey, Don, how you doing?
Yeah, great to see you again. Did you call me old, by the way?
I said old
You said
friend.
old friend. Okay. I'll take that the right way. Great to see you.
Yeah, you too, my friend. Don and I go way back out of college. I was looking for a job. I was fresh with my teaching credential. And Don was starting a new school and called me and said, "Hey, I'm trying to hire teachers. Are you interested?" And Darren and I had just gotten married. We had decided our honeymoon. We decided to go ahead and leave LA and come out to Palm Springs and join Don in building a school. And boy, that was such a fun way to start my career.
Heather, you're leaving out that I met you when you were 12. Okay. I'm sorry.
We got to go even further back.
The day we moved to Palm Springs, California, we were told, go to the Dean home.
Yeah.
So we showed up at the Dean home, and you and your sister were there, and Rodney, and we fell in love with the family, ended up going to the same church your dad was pastor at. And I don't know how long after that, but I said, someday you're going to work for me, because you had a wisdom beyond your years, even early on. So, yes, professionally, we started together when you came to work at King's, but yeah, the personal relationship is as dear to my heart as anything. So
I agree, Donnie. I agree. And
you can call me Donnie, by the way.
I was going to say, Donnie might slip every once in a while. Everyone, it's Don, but only Donnie to me, because that's what I grew up with.
you have permission. Just be yourself.
When I came out and spoke, I was really careful not to have Donnie slip. I did pretty good, didn't I, Don?
Yep. Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Yes, well, you did. Don is really respected in the field of education. He is a headmaster at King's Schools, and was the founder of this school. And I got to be a part of just watching how a leader starts an organization and all the highs and lows and dips and everything. And man, I learned a lot from that. But I think what's been really profound, Don, the reason I asked you to endorse my book, Grace Space, is because I only wanted people endorsing my book who were actually modeling Grace Space. And you've proven it in the field. And I guess that's where I want to jump in. Tell me a little bit of what this book has meant to you as not just the headmaster over there at King's School, but really as a human being, a father, a spouse, all these roles we play.
Well, first of all, Heather, I'm so proud of you. Congratulations on your newest book.
Thank you.
And I think it's important that people know that we are celebrating our 30th year. And when I was putting together kind of a game plan of how to celebrate throughout the year, I thought, well, who better than the first teacher I ever hired to be able to come back and share a little bit about what life was like back in 1993 when we started, and then now to see where you're at, and then to piggyback with the book that you introduced to our staff recently, and how in just a short amount of time, I told you before the podcast, I've already started to implement some of the pearls of wisdom in there, specifically as to how we are handling conflict. And I have found myself on a kind of a pattern in the last couple of years. I don't know if it was triggered by COVID. I know it was compounded by COVID, but anxiety and stress and confusion and fear and worry have just skyrocketed. And because of that, our ability to be able to navigate through conflict as leaders has risen to, in many respects, toward the top of the list. And so having a tool like Grace Space is so practical. And that's what we're looking for as leaders is, we can talk in theory all day long, but what does it get down to when, the rubber meets the road? And here we are in conflict. And sometimes just having real simple principles that, and what's really, I see this as kind of a wink from God. You had the 3 C's, of clarity, confidence, and courage. Yes. Well, when COVID hit, I put together the 5 C's. And one was stay calm. 2, use common sense. Courage was one of them. And so I said, great minds think alike, maybe.
Yes. Yes.
But those C's those are the types of things that when you can kind of bring issues back to the same answers or the same principles, you're going to get farther with people, and you're going to find there's less confusion. So the clarity and the confidence and the courage that it's taking in leadership today, you captured it, man. You hit it on the head, and it's being put to practice here at this school. And I know even personally, I have some things going on in home that it's like, okay, instead of being judgmental, okay, I'm going to ask the why. Why are you feeling that way? And recently was at a workshop with Michael Jr., the comedian. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he and his wife travel, and they do. He's hilarious, but he's also really about marriage. And so he uses marriage to, speak a lot of truths. But the same thing was echoed there that you captured in the book about, hey, we got to get to the other side. We can't just always compromise, because in a compromise, neither side really gets what they want. And sometimes, you got to compromise. But every time you're just compromise, nobody's ever going to feel like they've really been heard. So sometimes it's stop. Why are they feeling this way? Let's extend some grace. Let's come over to the other side. And maybe, just maybe, this is an opportunity to say, you know what? Let's do it your way.
Yeah. I was just interviewing a professor yesterday about it out of Pepperdine. And it made me think about what you're talking about, that she was talking about just more critical thinking, being able to recognize that we have an opportunity, and it's usually a split second to decide, am I going to question or accuse? And as we're talking about raising emotional intelligence in our society and really going after, why are we anxious? I think a lot of people aren't recognizing that they are getting victimized, not only by their own emotions, but by other people's emotions. And to be able to stay in control and have objectivity and critical thinking, it's hitting me as you're talking, especially as both of us having passion for educating and creating critical thinkers or society. Gray Space has that opportunity to just take a beat, take a second, and recognize we've got a choice right here. Do I want to accuse or do I want to question? And that's part of why I juxtapose them, because I want everyone to see, it's really a nod to our free will, but I wanted everyone to see that you have a split second to make that choice. And I guess that's where I'm going to go. Do you have a practical example? It could be in the personal space, or it could be in the professional space, where you reach for one of these practices.
Absolutely. Okay. So this week, I get approached by someone who, has some, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. So some constructive critiques about the school. And I was not very graceful because it was an attack. And so I think it was a good learning experience. And honestly, I'll tell you, it flashed through my mind that in this millisecond, I'm going to be on a podcast with Heather. I better be careful how I respond to this. But my point was, I did not extend grace. And you know what? It got to me.
Yeah.
It really ate at me. I was so disappointed in myself as a leader, because I let this person who I've known for 15 years, get under my skin. And it was simply a difference of opinions. And so, but, in my own defense a little bit, it was an attack, and that's going to happen. But I reacted. And that's a growing experience for me. I've since gone and, extended grace and said, hey, I love you. Let's start over again and tell me how you're really, tell me what you're feeling. And while, some of the things I know, I'm sorry, those aren't negotiable.
Right.
Other things, I'm going to give some thought to, but it's practical. And I've got issues every day, with kids, trying to help them resolve conflict in a healthy way. And these are the types of tools that are desperately needed at every level. And I will say, as time has gone on and, you're older and more experienced, I do say, confidence grows with time.
Yeah.
As long as I say, I think you've got a pretty good track record. Confidence grows with time. Courage grows with time. Clarity grows with time. And I've found, just dealing so much more with, as I said before, anxiety and stress and fear. And I've kind of, you may have heard Max Lucado said something one time, that courage is simply fear that has said its prayers.
I have not heard that. I love that. Yeah.
Courage is simply fear that has said its prayers. And another one, I can't remember who said it, is, and I've really had to put this into practice. Fear came knocking at the door, courage answered, and there was no one there. And where I had to experience that the most was during COVID. We reopened our school full time, in person, against the governor's orders, not because I'm trying to be a martyr or a rebel, but I really believed in my heart the government had overstepped their boundaries. Kids needed to be in school, and we decided to open our school. And it was scary. I had to, courage. I've never exercised so much courage in my life. We had to line up the largest law firm in the country that defends faith-based organizations, First Liberty. Talk to Kelly Shackelford. I mean, that guy's big time, Supreme Court, all that. And he really empowered me, but I never was tested so much in the area of courage. But you know what? In retrospect, and now having read your book, what gave me the courage was the clarity of our vision. I knew what we were called to do. And because there was clarity and that decision, and this is something that I'm really thankful for, when you maybe there is a really difficult situation where you need to extend grace. In this case, really difficult decision where I had to exercise courage. Well, making the hard decision, reopen our school, made subsequent decisions a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I say, anyone that's struggling with, gosh, this is going to take a boatload of courage, I say, go for it, knowing not only it's going to take courage, but it's probably going to make some subsequent decisions down the road a little bit easier for you. You'll do yourself a favor. So
I love that you brought that up, Don, because that's just showing your old age and wisdom. I got to just do a little quick joke there, but in all seriousness, it's showing, I think it's popular to just take that leap, but to your point earlier, courage without clarity or confidence can be very dangerous. And I think I've likened courage to, yes, have the courage to take that leap of faith or that next step, or just to be the only voice in the room. But make sure you have that clarity of why you're doing it, because that's what fuels the courage. And courage without that clarity and that confidence, I liken it to jumping out of a plane without a parachute. And the clarity and the confidence is that parachute that you're putting on, that I'm like, you're still going to have to jump. I mean, you had to make that decision to come against the state government right there. But you said, wait a minute, I know why I'm doing this. And I'm willing to stand on it. That's your clarity and your confidence, so that your courage, to your point, yeah, it's still risky and it's hard, but it's not terrifying where you just don't know how this is going to land. You're like, regardless of how this lands, I have the clarity of why I'm doing this. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. And I often will say, what's the worst that could happen? Okay.
Mm,
Worst that could happen, our school gets shut down. Okay. Oof. Hard to think. I mean, this place is like a child to me. So that would be
yeah.
like a death.
Yeah.
But if I said that I knew in my heart that I was doing what I knew was right,
Mm-hmm.
and I've sought counsel, that's
Mm-hmm.
not an impulsive thing, then I could live with that.
Mm-hmm.
Would I want
Yeah.
it? No, no.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that comes, when you do step out with the clarity, confidence, and courage. There's a peace that comes with that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Isn't
you
it?
might you might be the only one that feels it for a while, but there is a peace that you lay your head on the pillow at night and say, I know I did the right thing.
Right.
And yeah, in this world there will be troubles,
Yeah.
but hey, I can live with the outcome. And
Yeah.
and thankfully we had our healthiest year on record after we opened.
Oh, what a
Uh,
confirmation.
no, no joke. It was like I wanted to say neener, neener, neener,
Yeah.
but but that was it took a toll on me.
Sure.
Definitely those types of situations. I don't care if they're fighting a pandemic or trying to break up an argument between a couple of kids. They
Mm-hmm.
take tolls on you, on leaders. But over time, there's those the comfort that comes from doing the right thing. And your analogy of the skydiving is I skydived. Did you remember that? I
Yes, I
jumped off the
do.
plane when I left
Yes.
Church, and
Yeah.
but I also say too, kind of like skydiving, when it comes to these kinds of conflicts, they say in skydiving, any jump you walk away from is a good jump,
So true.
right? And I say any conflict that you come away from, better, even though it's hard, it's a good conflict. So
Yes. Well, you brought up a really good point that I do want to circle around with about basically getting that clarity on even how to apologize. We know when we've handled a conversation poorly. We've all been there. And I always tell people gray space is not about perfection. It's about practice, which is why I call them practice.
mhm.
And it's giving you a shortcut to know what to practice so that you can get better at it faster. That's always my goal. If we could achieve more in a lifetime, for me, I want the focus and energy to be on something like gray space. That's what I want to be successful in. And I love your example on that because you're right on. When you knew that you didn't handle a conversation like you wanted to be able to say, I wish I could have responded better. Many of us walk away with that sick feeling in our gut, but we don't know why. And so I love that you brought that up because going back to clarity of understanding why we're not feeling good about that situation. And it makes me think of my own marriage, gray space in a marriage. After 30 years of marriage, I'm like, I think I probably accused more than I should have in that moment. I probably could have stayed a little more curious and asked questions. It even helps me as a wife to go back and say, I got to own this with you, hon. I handled this poorly. My fast thinking was going down this track. I probably should have just asked you a couple questions before I accused. Same thing with raising teenage kids, all these things that it's helped me own, not just for what I need to, who I want to be to clients and in leadership spaces, but really who I want to be as a human being, whatever role that I
Yeah.
am stepping into.
Well, at this age too, I recently lost my mother,
Yeah.
and she was my hero.
Mm,
And this school would not be here, without mom. And that
mm,
whether you've lost a loved one or there are things that happen in life where you get a perspective check, right, as to
mhm.
really what's important.
Yeah.
And the older you get, the more perspective checks you get. And at the end of the day, you really come to understand, is this a hill worth dying on?
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
Yep.
And heaven forbid, but what if something were to happen to one of the two people in this conversation
Mhm.
and we didn't have the chance to reconcile?
Mhm.
Both of us would be going,
Mhm.
what a wasted
Yeah.
amount of energy for
Yeah.
what? For what? So those perspective checks,
Yeah.
are really, really key. And those are things that I really hold on to from my upbringing. I think I told you we're in this campaign now. The slogan is "Out with the new, in with the old."
Mm.
And there's just some old school. I'm old school.
Yeah.
There's some old school fundamental principles, and I would say if I didn't know better, your book could have been written 40 years ago and applied, because there's old school, simple, not easy, but simple.
Yep.
Simple principles that you just come back to. And I find as a leader, that's one of the things that people are looking to leaders for. Can you help me simplify this? Can you give me a perspective on this so that it just doesn't overwhelm me? And so having the tools to do it is you got a pretty deep bag of tricks as a leader. And so thanks for adding to the bag of tricks of this old headmaster.
Oh, you're so welcome, my friend. Anything to do to help. But it was birthed out of my own desire of what I was seeing happening in our world, what I needed more of. And I had written these principles down for myself and practiced them for over 2 years before I even wrote the book. Because I practiced everything on myself first. I'm my own guinea pig. And then I took it into an organization. And I'm telling you, the book's only been out since January here, but the response that I'm getting is just so powerful. And I kind of know why. People are tired of the anger. They're tired of the hopelessness. They're tired of the lack of choice. And to your point, they need just some easy handles. These are 7 practices, but we both know that grace is such a big word, but I was like, I have to start somewhere. And I'm sure we could come up with, and I would encourage us for any of our listeners, come up with 7 more, come up with 70 more. There's plenty more out there, but these were the 7 that I practiced personally. And I wanted to grow in both as a wife, a mother, as a coach, and again, just as a human being, because I was watching our world lose their humaneness. And whether it was on social media or talking to a barista or whether, in our workspaces, I remember I just came and sat down at my desk after so much conflict and people realizing they didn't realize that they had a choice between just a nanosecond of, hey, maybe I could handle this differently. And so they were just sinking to the lowest common denominator in the room and going back to old principles. I mean, isn't that what our grandparents taught us? Like, be the bigger person, take the high road.
So I'm gonna ask your permission, young lady.
Sure.
Okay. They showed you this picture, right? Can I tell this story real quick?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So Heather was the first teacher I ever hired, and I always reference Heather on when we have tours because we talk about 3 things. One of those is excellence, and I say, right from the beginning, excellence comes down to teachers. And so I hold this picture up, this black and white picture of Heather when she was teaching. And there was a young boy in her class, Raymond Garza. You remember Raymond?
I do. Yeah,
and
sweet baby.
Raymond sat in my office for the interview, and I asked him, "Hey, do you like school?" And I'm paraphrasing, but he says no. And I said, "Why?" And he says, "Because I'm dumb." And I said, "Well, what makes you think that?" And he said, "That's what my dad tells me." Well, we took a chance, as you know, on Raymond, and he was in your class. And as I remember the story is, on more than one occasion, but basically the message to him from Heather was, Raymond, you're not dumb. Yeah. You learn differently, but you're not dumb. Well, over time, that was a clarity. You were well above your way ahead of this gray space even 30 years ago, but that brought some clarity. Okay. And then honestly, confidence and courage were spoken into this young man to the point where he started to believe in himself. And I remember the day I walked across the campus and Raymond and this boy, Kyle, remember Kyle in your class, they were playing a tetherball game, and Raymond said something, and Kyle's response to what Raymond said was, "Oh, that's dumb." Well, because of what you'd poured into him, Raymond stopped the tetherball, threw his shoulders back, and says, "I'm not dumb. I just learn differently."
Yes.
But right from the beginning, Heather, you had an amazing wisdom to be able to bring things into real focus for kids, and in turn for their parents. And as you know, Raymond, at 16 years old, lost his life in a tragic car accident. And at his service, okay, I remember Martha getting up and she said, if it hadn't have been for King Schools and Mrs. Penny, she said, I don't know where Raymond would be today. But because of King Schools and Mrs. Penny, I know exactly where Raymond is today. Wow, that was one of the most, and you know what? Tragic ending. We wouldn't have scripted it that way. But look at the impact going all the way back where there was, hey, I'm going to give you a clear focus here. And then I'm going to speak confidence and give you the courage to believe in yourself. Hey, it's timeless.
It is timeless. Thanks, Don. You took me back. I had all these memories just flashing through my head, and I love those kids. And that is where I learned. It's a nod to my own parents, of course, and you know them. They believed in people, right? And they believed in the power to change. And they believed in God changing people too. So they taught me that it wasn't just all on me. It was me reaching for something bigger than myself. It was reaching for Raymond's creator. And I know our creator does not make dumb things. So talk about my own clarity. That's what I dipped into. And I was 23-year-old kid. Yeah. I'm a kid back then. And I was only 10 years older than my students.
That's right.
But, I think age doesn't matter when you have that clarity. And I think this is my hope for Grace Space, that it will grow the clarity. And no matter what you're doing, whether you're a stay-at-home parent or whether you're out in the field or whether you're transitioning in life, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're about, to be able to have the clarity that I want to create spaces of grace around me. And I think this is where many of you are already doing that. But if you can have some shortcuts for what you're doing so that you can level up and take it to that next level, that's what I get excited about, to be able to get this tool in your guys' hands.
Well, life comes down. I believe this with all my heart, more and more as I'm, more experienced. It comes down to really just a handful of basic principles. In fact, my kids. You babysat my kids.
Yeah, love your kids.
And when the boys turned 13, I took them on a passage trip, and I was Sherry and I were challenged by a friend of ours who said, "Hey, sounds terrible, but if you died tomorrow, what are the 5 things you want your kids to know?" And I went and gathered letters, one from you even, from every teacher, every coach, every neighbor, family member. And I remember specifically with Brad, every time for a week we went on a passage trip, went on a motorcycle ride up into Colorado. And every time we sat down for a meal, I'd give him a letter. But in those 5 days, I said, Brad, these are the 5 things that we want you to know. And it wasn't so much the nature of those 5 things, is the fact that it was 5 things. And now, interesting, my kids are parents, and I see them, because I got to a point where my kids knew them by number. So
that's awesome.
Hey, number 4, number 4, number 2. But the whole point of that is, I would say 98, 99% of life continues to boil down to just a handful of really fundamental, proven, timeless principles. And I think the 3, C's that you hit in Grace Space, they capture those. And sometimes simplicity is the answer, as much as the answer itself. It's just get it back to a simple focus, because gosh, if you don't have that, you're just fishing. You're just grasping for all sorts of different, answers for every situation. And I promise you, almost any conflict can be brought back to one, if not all of those fundamental principles. So again, thanks for equipping leaders like me with more tools.
Oh, well, thank you, Don. And it's just been a pleasure having you endorse the book. And you're, just so you know, you're in really good company with just amazing leaders out in the field that are putting this into practice. And they're already instinctively doing it, but it's almost like truth when you see it. And when these are the people that are coming across my book and then are just saying, oh my gosh, I knew it. And I said, yeah, you knew it. Now you've got the language for it. Like, let's join this language, because right now we have a very toxic language that's pushing people into reacting, into controlling, and to staying angry and to not forgiving. Grace is a whole different paradigm shift, and it's an old-fashioned word, but I wanted to bring it back. And I guess that's where, as we start wrapping up, I'll just ask you, how do you define grace?
Well, grace is a gift. As a strong Christian, grace has taken on a whole new meaning in really about the last 5-6 years, because growing up with a relationship with God, I knew grace. I preached it all the time. I ran a school, but when you really think of grace as being a free gift of what was done for us, and that is, stop muddling it up or mudding it up, or stop complicating it. Just accept it for what it is. It's simple. Keep it simple. And that's where I love what I do. Being around children, I'm reminded, become like a kid. Kids kiss and make up way better than adults do. Yes. And it's because they haven't clouded grace with all of these conditions that come because, well, I'll do it if he does it, or I'll do, this only if, and that's really no grace at all. Grace is a gift of extending yourself and giving that same gift of forgiveness and understanding and compassion and purpose, and really, again, having that perspective to say, is this really worth all the arguing? No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
So you know what? You don't feel like you lose. You're going to get a lot of naysayers. You're going to get a lot of people coming at you. I take a quote from Babe Ruth, who said, "The loudest boos come from the cheapest seats." People criticize what they don't understand.
Yes.
And so, all right, then I need to try to help them understand. Yeah. And in the process, just, be graceful. And, I'm sure that it's going to change them. It's going to change me. And so grace is a gift, free gift, forgiveness, love, compassion, all those things.
Love it. And I think that's the call to every human being. Did you know that you carry this gift around you? You don't have to wait for someone else to give it to you first. You don't have to wait till you feel right to do it. You can decide if you want to engage this gift and actually create spaces of grace all around you, and you can carry it wherever you go. So it becomes, wherever you're at, you become the space that people want to live and lead in. And I think that's what I get excited about.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. I got to ask you with my ending question. This is a question I ask all the people that I have on my podcast. And it's this idea of the way we start our day is really important. And I don't even ask how or if you start your day in a certain way. I've just started making the assumptive close that great leaders and people who are living intentionally or with purpose have a way to start the day that helps them get ready for the day. And I love asking this question because it's so unique. It's like the fingerprints that we all have. It's different for what everyone needs. So I guess that's what I'll wrap up with. What's some of your morning rituals, Don?
Finally got on kind of a workout routine the last 7 months. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm up at 4:15 to get to a 5 a.m. workout because I have to be done by 6 o'clock so I can get home, shower, and get to school. But I'll tell you, in the year 2000, we almost lost our school. Just due to some circumstances with the Anderson Foundation, if you recall. Anyways, and that led me to a really humble point in life where I started a routine that I do to this day. I call it my sanctuary, and it's the parking lot of the Tockwitz Creek Golf Course, less than a mile from our school. So typically on days that I always stop there, but sometimes I have anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half where I go to my sanctuary and I I read the Bible, I pray, I listen to music. I just think, I look at my calendar and I fuel up basically. But I have this, I'm not an artist, but I could paint what the sanctuary looked, because I've been there now 23 years, thousands of times going over to there, and it's the sun's coming up. It's beautiful. I'll often get out and sit at the table, or I've even taken a walk around the golf course, but it's right there at the Tockwitz Creek Golf Course parking lot. That's my sanctuary, and that's become my favorite time of the day by far. So
that's is
my
beautiful.
routine.
I am so glad I asked. Okay, listeners, go find your sanctuary. I am already thinking about my sanctuary, and I'm just going to name it that. And I love the fact you named it and just said, that's my sanctuary. That is powerful. Thanks, Don.
Yep.
All right.
I'm excited for this stage of life. And thanks again, Heather, for having me on. Thanks for, allowing me to be a part of your life and pouring into my life and this staff. And I'll just say, I'm going to put on the big old hat right now. I am so proud of you.
Thank you, Donnie. Well, I got a great start in life with you, so I appreciate it. And I thank you for your faithfulness. And again, your commitment to Grace Space. And again, everybody, this is not about perfection. This is about a commitment and a lifelong commitment that we're going to be people of grace. So thanks for modeling that, Don.
Pleasure.
Take care, everyone. We are cheering you on.
Amen.
Thanks for joining us. We had such a great time today. And obviously, we are all stepping into this life that we're made for. But isn't it nice to have a little bit of support along the way? If you want to find out more about the life that you're made for, come find me at heatherpenny.com. Go ahead and subscribe. Give us a review. That really helps us out and helps spread the word. You get to step into the life that you're made for. Cheering you on.